everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Northern Area Planning Committee on the 4th of June 2024 at the Exchange, Sturminster Newton. This is one of the 3 area-based planning committees of Dorset Council. I would like to welcome committee members back for the election on the 2nd of May. I am Councillor Richard Crabb, chair of this area planning committee. To my right is Councillor David Taylor, vice chairman. I'd just like to do some introductions with the officers who we have here at the moment, starting on my right, Hannah. If you could introduce yourself, please, Hannah. You.
Planning Minister. Catherine Matthews, Leader of Conservation and Design.
Steve Savage, Transport Development Manager, representing Dorset Highways as the statutory constable team.
Okay, thank you for that. The meeting is being live streamed and will be available on the council website after the meeting. By attending this meeting, you consent to being filmed. And I remind everyone that when you are speaking, please speak clearly into the microphone so that you can be clearly heard and be seen. Please ensure that mobile phones are switched off or turned to silent. For those using Teams to access the meeting remotely, please ensure that your microphone is on mute. Planning Committee is not a public meeting, but a meeting to which the public is invited. All attendees must comply with the ruling of the chair. They must not interrupt the meeting or cause disturbance. We have 3 applications to determine today. When it comes to declarations of pecuniary or other conflict of interest, bias or predetermination, should something come up during the meeting which you think you should declare, then please let me know straight away. I'm just now going to go through the ground rules for each application. For visitors who have not attended a planning committee before, and for those watching online, I'll briefly explain this procedure. For each application, I will invite the case officer to present their report and recommendations. After that, I will invite members of the public, planning agents, applicants, town and parish councils who have registered to speak, allowed to address the committee. Following order is the public against, public with support, the applicant or agent, council, and then the local ward member. Each has 3 minutes to speak. In order to speak, please come to the small table at the front on the left over there. When I call your name, speak clearly into the microphone, which you turn on by pressing the right hand button and press again to turn off when finished. Following the public participation section of every item, I will ask officers if there are any salient points that they wish to clarify. I will then open up to members of the committee for questions and clarifications, and then debate the application. In order to run the meeting, may I request that members of the committee direct any remarks and questions through the chair, and I will invite members to speak in turn. Please use the desk microphone supplied and ensure that you talk directly into the mic. Please state your name and the area you represent. At the end of the debate, we'll take the vote by a show of hands. when doing presentations, there may be a short gap while the presentations are loaded and the case officers take their place to introduce the planning applications. We will take comfort breaks as and when needed. We will now start the agenda. First of all, apologies. Megan, do we have any apologies?
Just get to turn the microphone on. So we've received apologies for absence from Councillor Barry Cooper.
Declarations of pecuniary interest.
Thank you, Chairman. It's not actually pecuniary interest, it's just for clarification and transparency. I did chair the planning committee meeting at Gillingham Town Council when agenda item 7 was discussed. I didn't vote, I didn't offer an opinion in support or against,
Okay.
but I just thought it's worth saying.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a pecuniary interest regarding the Sherborne House application. I will therefore not chair this item. The Vice Chair, Councillor David Taylor, will take over. Is there anyone else who needs to declare a pecuniary interest? No, so I take that as a no. Next item is the minutes. Confirm the updated minutes of the meeting held on Tuesday, 9th of April, 2024, which have been circulated to members in advance of this meeting. Do I have a proposer to accept this as a fair record? Belinda as a proposer. Anyone to second? Carl as a seconder. Okay, thank you for that. So we can accept that the minutes are a fair representation of the last meeting. I've already covered public participation in my opening remarks. Now we start the planning applications. Some information is that we've got background information relating to before today, and that's been widely circulated so that people can see all of that, as well as the North Dorset local plan and the council's related policies. Okay, I'm going to step aside now, and Councillor David Taylor will chair that item. Okay, thank you, David.
Thank you, Richard. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to start off with our first planning application, which is the application P/FUL/2024/00846. My name is Councillor David Taylor and I represent Charles St Mary Ward, and I'd like to pass over to Cass Warman, the case officer. Thank you, Cass.
Morning. The application to site a metal storage container in the service yard of the Sherborne or the Sherborne House is brought to committee following consideration by the Service Manager for Development Management in light of referral requests made by Dorset Council members, noting the concerns raised by Historic England and the Town Council. I've been asked to clarify that Historic England do not object per se to the application, but raise concerns with regards to matters of justification, siting and design, which we'll discuss in this application. My colleague Catherine here is to give us an introduction as to how we got to this application today, and then I'll take us through the application itself. Sherborne House is recently opened in the centre of Sherborne, marked by the white square here. And Catherine will just give us a quick history about how we got to where we are today after an extensive, refurbishment and extension programme.
Thank you, Cass. This project has been an ongoing project for a number of years now, which started with the actual Sherborne House Grade 1 listed mansion being painstakingly conserved and restored. And all this happened before the extension to the rear was put on. The main thing about this project, every single detail regarding this site has been meticulously planned, down to the pointing of the wall at the front, to the actual painting of all the stonework on the front of the building. As well as the restoration of the Georgian facade, the Tudor wing's also been restored and turned into a shop, and we've got cafe and a bar area as well. To make all this work sustainable, an extension has been added to the rear of the property, which is constructed from a Sedum construction with a zinc proof, which is very, very impressive. And it's this element that's going to be will bring in the income probably for Sherborne House. Now it's a multi-use space, and as a multi-use space, it's going to host different events. So one day it could be hosting, say, an opera from London being streamed down with the tiered set of seating. The next day it could be potentially hosting a wedding or conferences, all of which have specific needs as to what furniture they need in there. So it's essential there is somewhere that this furniture can be stored. Now, I've sat down with the architects and with the team, and we've discussed many options for where the container will be best sited. And we've concluded that obviously where it is proposed to be, which Cass will sort you through, is the best option. It's in the service yard, so it's very much back of house, and it's near the dustbin store, so you're not going to read it. I think it's really important to take on board that most historic houses that are used for events do have these types of storage facilities, but we just don't see them. So Kingston Lacey, for example, when you go there, you don't notice the biomass boiler, which is tucked right behind, and it would be the same as this with the metal container. One other nice touch proposed with this metal container, though, is because the whole site is basically for the community and for children, for education and for arts, there's an idea that there's going to be a competition to ask local children to design a mural to go on this container to make it obviously more in keeping with the site. So it'll actually be sort of artistic when you look at it, and that will come from local people. So I think that's a very nice touch. So what I'll do is I'll pass you back over to Cass to present the visual.
Thank you. So as a matter of context, then the service yard is on the right-hand side, adjacent to the new pavilion extension, sat behind the main Grade 1 listed house and behind the main entrance, which is to the left-hand side. The Waitrose car park is opposite us, and then the main town is to the left. So this is just now a photo that I found that was taken during the construction, just to show the location of it in context. Main Grade 1 listed house is here at the front. This white area here is now the pavilion extension, and the service yard is sited here to the right-hand side. What I've done is I've taken a series of photographs to walk you through what it looks like on site and where the proposal will sit. This is stood within the Waitrose car park, opposite the site, the main Grade 1 listed building here, and the Tudor wings to the left here. I'm going to walk into the site from the main entrance where the pedestrians are funneled through from the left-hand side of the site. So the main entrance into the building, people are funneled here through the main entrance into the reception, or people can veer off to the left into the restaurant and cafe. So walking a bit further along in front of the Waitrose car park, the Grade 1 listed building is here, and this is the secondary entrance on the right-hand side, which is designed as a secondary entrance for service vehicles and for people that have parking permits to park and access. So this is not anticipated to be the main entrance at all. So right in front of it, this is the newly constructed bin store that will weather. And then the service yard is situated under here beyond the tree on the right-hand side behind the main house. So I'm going to walk up that secondary entrance now just to show you the location of which the container is proposed. So you can see the setting within this Grade 1 listed building here. And you can just see here, this red wall here is one of the new walls which encloses the service yard. So I'm walking up the secondary entrance towards the house. And then walking up again, this wall here is the front wall of the service yard that separates up. This car parking area hasn't quite been finished laid out yet. It would be a bit more formal and alongside the wall, but you get the idea. This side of the site is not the main areas where people would be milling around. Standing in the front sculpture garden, again, you can see how the primacy of the main building is maintained to the left, the service areas to the right. Now I'm walking alongside the right-hand side. This is the mural window on the left, parking areas, and then this is the new wall here, which when the site is operational, there will be a gate that rolls across the front to block that off. And the proposal is to site the container in between the service yard walls alongside this wall here. This is me stood alongside the main Grade 1 listed house. So this is me stood against the side of the pavilion, looking towards the site of the proposed container that will sit there. That's just an overview of what that would look like there against that wall. Across the service yard to stand in the area where the container was proposed, looking back towards the side of the pavilion extension and the rear of the main house. So one of the benefits of siting the storage unit here is that this on the left is a staff access into the pavilion. So it allows things to be transported across the service yard without having to go through either the main house, the pavilion or the garden. So it's a nice subtle way of being able to service whatever events are happening either in the pavilion, in the main house or to the rear in the garden. So coming out of the service yard into the rear garden, this is what the rear gates and walls currently look like, and the container would be alongside this wall here. It would just pop out the top. So to demonstrate on this drawing here, the top of the container will just pop out the top of the new walls, but would be sited well below the main wall towards the rear of the container. So it would not protrude above this wall at all, and only above this one a tad. I was going to walk back into the garden now to show you where the container would be read from. For anyone looking to that side of the service yard from the rear garden, the container would be located there. So we're walking back into the garden again, be behind these walls along the edge. You just see the top of it there. Again, the container would be sited here. Container sited just above there. And then in the back of the garden, looking back towards the new pavilion, the container would be sat in the service yard to the left. So the whole reading of the rear of the site is very much centred towards the new pavilion, the back of the house, the Tudor wing, and so it would be tucked away out. So I've just gone inside the main house to just show you the perception and the relationship between the proposed siting of the container and the main listed house from the inside. This is me stood in the back of the modern stairwell to the rear, looking into the service yard. But again, you wouldn't tend to look that way, you would be looking into the garden. So again, the container would be sited in here. And that's a perception just from the secondary exit from the Thornhill stair entrance to the ground floor. Again, the container would be sited in here. So locating the storage unit, as Catherine has pointed out, has been satisfactorily justified in officers' opinion because there are no other places on the site to store things, and the requirement to store things is going to be a requirement to enable the commercial and ongoing economic viability of this commercial and arts centre. It has funding for the first 2 years of its life, but then it has to be self-funding after that. So the most that we can do, the better. So that it's considered to be the most viable option, and therefore considered acceptable and justified as per the requirements of paragraph 206. Right. The main consideration for the application boils down to a difference of opinion between conservation specialists as to the suitability of the solution proposed to facilitate this additional storage. So just to quote what Historic England said, that they were concerned that it's given the quality, coherence and materiality of other buildings on site, they considered the container would be a large and incongruous addition of discordant and industrial character, and they considered that it would draw a greater attention to it by being metal. However, our opinion is that a metal storage container would, as Historic England point out, be industrial. But that is, in our opinion, the spirit of the modern additions that have been added to the rear and the sort of thing that you may expect to be within a commercial arts centre to store things. It would be easily legible in terms of the new interventions with the primacy of the listed house retained to the front of the site. It's sited to the side, adjacent to the new extension, behind walls separating the service yard from the gardens and away from the main listed buildings, away from other publicly accessible areas. The less than substantial harm to the setting of heritage assets is considered to be outweighed by public benefits. The extensive renovation works are complete and the shared one is now open to the public. It's free to enter, and the renovation project has facilitated a greater access and enjoyment of this Grade 1 listed building and its grounds. The redevelopment of the site has resulted in a regeneration of a previously underused site and has secured a viable and ongoing use for a heritage asset that was formerly at risk. The creation of this community asset in the heart of Sherborne will continue to contribute to the economic, environmental and social benefits for the town. It will have community benefits in terms of the use of the building for cultural events and exhibitions, and educational benefits via partnerships with local schools. And as Catherine pointed out, it's proposed to be decorated with a mural designed by a competition through local schools, again contributing to the Sherborne's community and educational engagement programmes. The proposal to site a container of bulky equipment required for a varied and variety of events that the Sherborne hopes to host will ensure the ongoing ability of the Sherborne to host large, high-quality public and private events, ensuring its commercial and financial viability into the future. This is the significant public benefit that weighs in favour of the scheme. So therefore, the public benefits of the proposal would, in the opinion of officers, be sufficient to outweigh any less than substantial harm that would be caused to the assessment of the listed house and the listed walls. And as such, the application meets the requirements of Chapter 16 of the National Policy Planning Framework and Policy M4 of the local plan. And therefore, the application is recommended for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Cass, for your presentation, and your colleague as well. Excellent. Second to this, we'd like to bring in the applicant agent, please, Stefan Pittman, to come and to give a discussion please. Stefan, you'll be time for 3 minutes. Is that okay?
Thank you. Thank you. Sherborne House has completed a monumental refurbishment of the greatest conservation alongside the reuse and recreation of a venue for the arts free to the public. This is a legacy project. It is open to the public with minor snagging and completion works for the course of the next month to finish. It is a multi-million-pound legacy given to the local community and wider region to allow access to the heritage and the arts. The public benefit is vast, saving a Grade 1 listed building on the at-risk register for 30 years and opening it to the public free for use and enjoyment. The Planning Committee states referral due to objections to the Town Council and Historic England. However, I have personally walked Jenny Cheshire and Eve van der Steen from Historic England around the site in April, and both were hugely complimentary of the scale and the quality of the work. They wish to use this as a case study for future reuse projects. Eve van der Steen, who wrote the comments from Historic England, did not object to the application, they support it. Indeed, the written response, it confirms they have no objection twice. Historic England suggests a temporary permission only, which Dorset Council do not consider is necessary. The location of the proposed unit is well chosen and would have very limited adverse impacts on the setting of the listed building. The position is east of the new pavilion to service this space, located behind brick walls out of sight from the front of the house. The new single-storey brick buildings to the west boundary are all full in designated use, and there is no further storage space. The storage is key to the success and viability of Sherborne House. Thank you.
All right, Stefan. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow councillors, I'd like to open the floor and answer questions, please. Who'd like the first one there? Councillor Fry, please.
Thank you, Chair. I like what I see in front of me. I think it's effective and useful. The one bit I'm a little bit uncomfortable and that goes against my grain of this is the children's mural on the side of the container. This is meant to be at the back of the building, out of sight. It discreetly hidden and discreetly placed. If we have wooden paneling on it, it would be there forever and be part of the thing. Whereas a mural wood, it's going to fade, it's going to wear out, it's going to need redoing. And what sort of control do we have over it? Whether it's going to be bright and garish at the back there. I think this is a wonderful project, fully supportive of it, and I'm supportive of the container because I can see the need. I just wonder whether we will be better with wooden paneling rather than a young person's mural. And it's hard because I support young people. But I think on this occasion, something more permanent might be better placed. Cass, do you want to comment?
Completely take on board all your concerns, Councillor. I think the thought process within this was purely because it is an arts centre. It is for the people of Sherborne. And in all honesty, as we've discussed, it's not going to be that visual. So this is really just a visual thing when you go in the storage yard and people coming in and out can actually see this mural. It's just meant to bring the community in, but I do take on board your point. But it's obviously that's something for members to consider.
Apparently this is part of this application, so it's not before us that it would be clad in wood. It was something we suggested at one point, but we feel that almost making it more permanent would be against the point of it being a container that's sited on the ground as a use rather than something more permanent. And in terms of the art use, we haven't suggested a condition on that, so I think it'd be quite difficult to condition. Firstly, not being necessary to make the application acceptable, and secondly, because as Catherine's pointed out, as an art centre, it's meant to be more of an organic thing that people would be able to, it's another strand of how the community could be involved in the centre, especially younger people. But it isn't necessarily needed to make the development acceptable in the officer's view. And I think if we tried to condition something around it, it might be more difficult, causing more issues than it solves potentially. And the Art Centre have obviously done a very good job, and they would have control over the what was on the side of the memorial. And the idea would be to obviously make it look more attractive from the views you can see it from that Cass has explained.
Thank you. I know all the comments on that, and in principle, I'm happy to propose when discussions continue.
Thank you very much. Bring in Councillor Bridnout, please.
Belinda Rideout, Gillingham Ward. I had similar concerns actually, and I just wanted to clarify, and if you could say, I know this isn't part of the application, the mural, but would it be painted actually on the container, do you think, or would it be painted on a board and fixed to the container?
Sorry, just to answer you, Councillor, those finer details we haven't actually explored. I mean, it could either be on the container or it could be on a fixed boarding that could perhaps be removed, and then over time perhaps another design could be put on as the building ages and progresses. That particular detail hasn't been considered yet.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate that, but I think in my own mind, if there was a board actually fixed onto it, it could be actually changed, the artwork changed. I think I'd be quite happy with that.
Thank you, Councillor Ridout. Can we have Councillor Jefferson, Sherry Jefferson, please?
It's not a question. I was going to make a comment if there are no more questions. Yes. If I may, Mr. Vice Chairman. So this committee has skin in the game, of course. Some members of this committee have skin in the game with this particular development, don't we? Because you will remember that some of us visited it when in its very early stages, when we were required to give planning permission. I don't know how many of you have been back to see it since it opened, but I have, and I have to say it is absolutely stunning. Better than we could ever have envisaged when we looked around that sad derelict building where we could only tread on half of the floorboards, and the back stairs was like a fire escape, and it's now. So I think we would like to, I know this committee would like to say how very pleased we are with the outcome, because it's better than we could ever have imagined. And thank you to Catherine for her part in all of that. Having got this far, this is the final decision we're being asked to make in support of it. And it seems to me that the case for a storage facility is absolutely made, but they have to have that facility. The place that they're choosing to put it seems to me very wise. I did walk round back there, and it's very legible, but I don't think it would be seen from any of the key points. You could see it if you leaned out of a window or if you went round the back to spy it out, but it's no way is it visible from any of the important points. So I don't think you could say that it would be visually intrusive in any way. I think, and it's accessed, of course, by the side entrance, which is where all the lorries would go in and out when they're loading art exhibitions and operas and all those other wonderful things. So I think it's very legible in that sense. In terms of whether there's a mural or not, it seems to me that it would work perfectly well as a a shipping container. That it won't be an eyesore. It will fit in with the tone of the modern part of the building. So if it's a shipping container, that will be fine. If the committee were to just give it permission to put the container there, and we could leave it, I suggest, to the art centre to decide themselves whether or not they wanted to put the children's mural on it. It doesn't seem to me that it needs that decision by us today to make this acceptable in planning terms. So I mean, I'm very, very relaxed about whether there's, I'm not very keen on cladding, I have to say. I know that's not in the proposal, and I'm glad to see it's not, because I think that's adding to the expense. But it seems to me that with or without the mural, this is very, very acceptable. It's the last stage that they need to make this a really, really viable art centre. And I think we should support it. Would it be possible for us to give it, to say, you know, you decide about the mural, we'll just give you permission with or without a mural? Would that be possible?
Yes, currently there are no conditions proposed as to how the container is or isn't finished. Saying exactly what you pointed out, Councillor, is that the art centre will steer the container as they see fit, and we have confidence that because of the high quality of what's happened to date, that there is no risk of degradation or deterioration or anything inappropriate. And so it was considered that it didn't really meet the tests of planning conditions to require details at this point, because we were happy that the principle of the container, with or without the decoration, would be acceptable in the setting.
Because given how they've done everything else, your confidence is exactly, I would be entirely confident that they're going to do exactly the right thing. So I'd like to propose that we accept this planning application without worrying too much about a mural or not a mural.
So therefore, at the moment, we've got a proposal from Les Fry, we've got a second who was sharing it there, but I've also got a question in from Councillor Jones, and you can.
No, it wasn't a question. I just wanted to agree with everything Councillor Jefferson said. I think we have to accept that the trustees or whoever has been behind building this incredible community centre now has just done the most wonderful job, and we should just leave it to them and trust in them that they will know whatever they need to do is absolutely superb. I just think Sherborne is extremely lucky to have this building. It looks fantastic. I can't wait to visit, and I would be more than happy to just let the art centre sort out whatever they want to do. They've got the best interest of that site at heart. I know.
Thank you very much, councillors. Are there any further observations or questions, please? No, so we're proposed by Councillor Fry, seconded by Councillor Jefferson. Can I have a show of hands in favour, please? Unanimous. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, officers, for your presentation. Okay, so we're just about to take a 5-minute adjournment because we've got a chair. We should crowd back in again to take over my role.
Okay, we'll get started again. Concerning plan application reference E/RAS/022/07988 west of Shaftesbury Road, Gillingham. Please could I ask Kirsten Williams to present.
07898.
It is a reserve actions application for 280 dwellings and associated. The application considers appearance, landscaping, layout, and scale. Just to note before we begin, these corrections to the report, please note that all typos and the percentages and conclusions discussed in the report are based on correct figures.
Based on correct figures. Thank you.
Correct figures, yeah.
Please.
Just note the typos are the quantum of the 2-bed units for the market housing. They're 13 rather than 15 as stated in the report. 1 flat open garage dwelling rather than 3. The affordable housing summarised in financial benefits on page 20. Currently in the report says 150 units, whereas it's actually 100 units, which equates to 36% of the number of dwellings rather than 50%. And on page 26, the total amount of car parking spaces within the site, excluding garages, equates to 591 rather than the stated figure at the moment. I'm going to start my presentation with some context and an overview of adjacent sites and the scheme as a whole for the new members, and as a reminder for those of you retained on the committee. The scheme you're considering today follows the grant of outline planning permission for 961 dwellings south of Gillingham across the Blue Line site known as Ham Farm. The outline permission also allows for a local centre providing retail, community, health and leisure uses. This is the North Dorset Local Plan, Policy 21 map, the wider strategic allocation for the Gillingham Southern Extension. The Ham Farm site is here to the south, with river corridors free from development. The yellow star is the local centre location within the Ham Farm site. There's been recent retail and business expansion across Shaftesbury Road here, including an Aldi supermarket and a petrol station with a convenience store. Further east, this site is known as Park Farm and has outline permission for 634 dwellings and a primary school. And a reserve matters application has recently been submitted for the first phase of this for 316 dwellings. The Loddon Lake site here is being built out for 205 dwellings, and the Brickfields employment application is here to the west. This is the outline approved land use plan. The site we're referring to today is identified with the red boundary line here. This is the outline approved illustrative master plan, which shows the anticipated highway routes, including the principal street, here running east through west from Shaftesbury Road to New Road. A secondary loop road is also shown here off the northern side of the principal street. This is the approved master plan for Principal Street, submitted under a separate planning application, which is now in the final phases of full completion. I've marked the location of the current proposed 280 dwelling site within the red site boundary here. A recently approved 108 dwelling site is marked here with a blue circle, and an approved 34 dwelling site is marked here with the yellow circle. The approved play space and kickabout areas are here with the green circles. This is an aerial photo provided by our highways team of Kingston Street's western junction with the B09 new road here. This is facing east with the outline side application across here on both sides of the road. And its southern boundary adjoins Coal Street Lane, just along here. This is another aerial photo of the principal street further to the east. As you can see, the principal street includes its own subs features and landscaping here, off-street parking here, and shared pedestrian and cycle routes on both sides of the road. This is a site plan of the outline through Shaftesbury Road junction with Principal Street. This includes a widened highway with turning filter lanes and a signal control junction layout. Here is the proposed phasing plan for the outline through development. The total phase 1 area in orange can provide up to 145 dwellings. A reserve matters application for 34 dwellings has been approved here, and south of Principal Street, a reserve matters application for 108 dwellings has been approved here. Phase 2, which is the application we're dealing with today, is to the north in the red, towards the town boundary, and that can provide up to 280 dwellings. Phase 3 in green along the west can provide up to 175 dwellings. Phase 4 further west in yellow can provide up to 245 dwellings. And phase 5, the east by the Shaftesbury Road junction can provide a local centre and up to 116 dwellings. It's worth noting that the outline up to quantum of dwellings shown on this slide is fixed by the outline approval and can't be altered at reserve matter stage. So this is the approved site plan for the 34 dwelling proposal located adjacent to today's phase 2 proposal, showing the connection with the Principal Street to the south. So phase 2 is up here, and the connection to the loop road is here, which joins up with Principal Street running along here. This site plan also shows the approved play facilities and kickabout area, along with a shared pedestrian cycle route here, which goes northwards towards the town settlement. This is the site plan for the approved 108 dwelling proposal to the south of Principal Street here. This is the current phase 3 proposal for 115 dwellings, linking west of the approved open play space and to the south and west of the phase 2 application site, which is in here. And this is the approved loop road running off the northern side of Principal Street, which links phases 1, 2, and 3 and runs through this application site. This is aerial imagery from Dorset Explorer showing the application site edged in purple, with secondary roads in green and the River Loddon in orange. The Principal Street is shown here, linking the site to the new road to the west and Shaftesbury Road to the east. This is an aerial photo from our highways department and is facing west from Shaftesbury Road. The application site is highlighted in purple. Field to the left of the site here is the 34 dwelling site shown on my previous slide. And the extent of the Principal Street can be seen here and the countryside beyond. And here are some photos of the phase 2 site. So this number 1 picture is actually looking southwest from the site over the area proposed to be the open green space. Number 2, this picture is taken from the furthest southeastern corner of the site looking northwest. So you can see the gradient rising. Number 3 is looking northeast over the eastern section of the site. Number 4 is taken looking southwest towards the southern boundary, which is over here. Number 5 is taken from the western site boundary, looking southeast again, showing the southern site boundary again. Number 6 is taken from the west side of the site looking east. And 7 is taken from the track leading towards St Mary's primary school site, looking east into the north and east section of the site. And number 8 is taken from the track leading towards St Mary's primary school site, looking northwest towards the boundary of the school, which is over here behind those trees. Here's the site you're considering today, showing the red line boundary within the context of the blue outline application boundary. These are some of the key principles informing the proposed layout, including creation of focal spaces and key frontages onto the secondary loop road, key frontages to frame the public open space, and staggered building lines to create interest in the species. Here is the proposed layout, comprising a total of 180 market units, 50 shared ownership units, and 50 affordable rent units. Traffic calming measures are included, including raised tables demonstrated by these hatches. This is the proposed affordable housing layout, which totals 36% of the proposed units. Note, the Section 106 agreement on the outline consent obligates the provision of 25% of affordable homes across the whole development, with a 10-year split of 50-50 between affordable rent and shared ownership. So the proposals are in line with this agreement. The 25% quantum was set out in Policy 8 of the North Dorset Local Plan Strategic Site Allocation in Gillingham and is supported by the Gillingham Neighbourhood Plan. The housing is distributed at 5 different locations throughout the site, including locations along the Spine Road and facing other routes within the site. Note that properties may appear to be grouped at the western edge. However, phase 3 adjoins the western boundary of the site, so these properties will in fact be set within the context of the larger development. This plan shows proposed building heights over the application site. The outline approved building heights plan permits dwelling heights up to 3 stories along each side of the bisecting public open space and along the northwestern edge facing the River Loddon corridor. This reduces to 2.5 stories for the rest of the site. 3 of the 6 apartment buildings will be 3-story, and they're situated adjacent to the loop road. Here, here, and here. 2 of the 2.5-story apartment buildings would be located west of the Spine Road and are well contained within the surrounding building parcel. Here, here, and the remaining 2.5-story apartment building faces Spine Road on the western edge, at a location that would not lead to a cramped or over-dominant appearance on the street scene. Proposed scale is considered to be in line with the parameters set at outline and complies with policies 7, 21 and 24 of the North Dorset Local Plan, the Gillingham Neighbourhood Plan and the Gillingham Town Design Statement. This plan shows the proposed parking provision of 569 allocated parking spaces, including 493 in hard standing and 76 allocated garages. A further 98 visitor spaces are distributed throughout the site. Proposals result in a ratio of 2 to 1 spaces per dwelling. This plan shows the extent of highway anticipated to be adopted. In consultation with the highway authorities, some changes have been made to this layout, and the geometry of the layout now complies with the guidance provided by manual for streets and is considered suitable for public adoption. Refuse collection has also been fully considered with provision of vehicle tracking and bin collection points. These are some of the proposed street scenes. Street scene A shows the dwellings fronting onto the central green space, which would predominantly be 2-story detached form with a more rural character. Street scene B shows the more varied height and type of dwelling fronting onto Secondary Street, Loop Road, creating a more dense and urban character area. Street C and C demonstrates a denser mix of two-storey dwellings in the core of the site. And Street C and D shows a more dispersed building line fronting onto the adjacent allotments, community orchard, and primary school, creating a softer transition to the countryside setting. Here is the materials site plan. Some dwellings, such as these, here have double frontages at appropriate corner plot locations, along with chimney features to add some variation and character. The materials palette includes a mixture of brown and red multi-stock brick colours for the elevations, along with light render, dark grey weatherboarding, cream reconstituted stone, and brown and grey roof tiles. The precise specifications are subject to further review under condition 4 of the outline consent. The character areas are identified by the background colours. So the green area is identified as Churchview character area, and the pink is identified as Churchview Edge character area. The Churchview character area is defined by a more varied palette and a more urban setting. There is a higher density mix of semi-detached and terraces with some detached dwellings. Properties are generally 2 to 2.5 storey with some 3 stories at key locations. Boundary treatments include a mix of state railings, low-level shrubs, and brick screen walls. Chimneys are located in areas of maximum visual prominence. The Churchview Edge area is defined by an earthy traditional palette within a landscape setting. Dwellings are lower density and primarily 2-storey detached. Boundary treatments include a mix of timber fencing, hedgerow, and brick screen walls. Chimneys have been added to larger dwellings and are in areas, again, of visual prominence. For reference, this is one of the apartments, which is one of the affordable housing allocations cited within the more urban Churchview character area. This is the proposed landscape master plan. A generous green space runs through the centre of the development in a north-south direction. Movement routes pass through this, linking to other areas of development. So note that the key northern pedestrian cycle link here, which runs up through here, is 3 metres wide to allow for 2-way traffic, including buggies or wheelchairs, to comfortably pass each other. A framework of green corridors weave through and surround the development, providing numerous biodiversity connections. No trees will be removed as part of the proposed development. However, in order to facilitate the implementation of the proposed development, it will be necessary to remove a total of 382 linear metres of hedgerow from within the site. However, these removals are broadly in line with those shown on the parameter plans approved at outline stage. Biodiversity mitigation and compensation measures for the hedgerow include appropriate site clearance methods during appropriate times of the year, establishment of species-rich grasslands, native shrub planting, and native hedgerow creation, establishment of biodiversity corridors, hibernacular for reptiles and great-crested newts on site, and the installation of bird and bat boxes, and a lighting proposal which takes bats into consideration. The bird boxes are located, well, the quantum of bird boxes is 1 per every 2 houses, and they're incorporated into the dwelling. This is the concept on-plot landscaping plan showing the layout of landscaped residential gardens associated with each dwelling. And detailed on-plot landscaping plans for the whole site have also been provided. It has been adequately demonstrated that conflicts between the proposed landscape with surface water drainage runs and lighting columns has been avoided. So this slide shows changes that have been sought from the initial consultation to overcome concerns. Several iterations have been made to proposals to address points, and because of this, we are now in a position to recommend this scheme for approval. Changes made include improvements to visitor parking locations, additional street trees, greater variation in street character, and in one location, parking located behind building. So in summary, the proposal has been through several reiterations to address concerns and comes to you today the best it can be. The principle of residential development on the site has already been established. The proposal is in accordance with the local plan core spatial strategy, the Gillingham neighbourhood plan, and the relevant supporting guidance for this strategic site allocation. The proposal is acceptable in terms of its layout, scale, appearance, and landscaping. The development would not lead to any material harm to residential amenity, and there are no material considerations which would warrant refusal of this application.
Thank you, Kirsten. Please could I now ask Richard Moore to speak. You have up to 3 minutes.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the council. Thank you for the moment to speak. I'm Richard Moore, who owns Armour Contracting, and our yard is in Gillingham, next door to Sidham's, which backs onto the development that's been posed here at the moment for the final details. I did raise an objection. I had no objection to the development right from the start. I'm a small-time developer myself, and one of my objections was to how the site's going to be set out, and I'm concerned about the issues of noise from my working yard that might affect the residents. And so I had a suggestion of either putting a bund between my yard, which is Higher Ham House, or some acoustic fencing to stop any noise, because we've got lorries, tippers working on the site next door, which will conflict with the residents of these houses. The other thing is we have an old hedge between Higher Ham House and the development, which is the Blackthorn hedge, which has been our security for many, many years. And we've had no one trying to intrude on the site. And one of my concerns is if that hedge is cut back, people will then actually come into my property. And what's on the drawing at the moment is just a post and rail fence, I believe, between development and my site. So basically, I mean, those are my main concerns, that once the residents are in, I'm going to get objections to my working yard, and there'll be a conflict, and then there'll be noise abatement, and I don't really want to have to deal with this as a conflict. I was there before this development had commenced. Thank you. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Please could I now ask Mr. Michael Rudder to speak.
Good morning, members. The application before you seeks detailed planning permission for 4 land parcels that were granted planning permission as part of a comprehensive planning application for up to 961 dwellings, together with commercial and community uses. The land parcels in question were approved as residential uses under the outline application. 280 of the dwellings allocated to these parcels as part of the approved phasing schedule you've already seen. Members will note that a deed of variation to the original Section 106 agreement has been approved by officers to allow these 4 parcels to be brought forward as phase 2 of the original development by the amended phasing plan you saw earlier. As confirmed with the officer's report, this also simplified the affordable housing requirements across the site to ensure that a site-wide provision of 25% is delivered. The site itself will deliver 100 dwellings as affordable housing, 36% of the dwellings across the site, which complies with the requirements of the Section 106 agreement. These will be delivered alongside the market housing by the applicants themselves as their registered provider of affordable housing. As the planning officer notes within their report, it is anticipated that further affordable units will be provided via grant funding from Homes England, in addition to these units delivered via the Section 106 agreement. The applicants anticipate 79 additional units to be delivered in this way. with the locations of these units set out on the affordable housing layout plan for members' information. Although the officer's report correctly states that only the 100 Section 106 units can be assessed under this application, the applicant's status as a registered provider, their track record of delivering additional affordable housing, and their financial incentives of the Homes England grant means that these additional units are highly likely to come forward. As noted within the officer's report, Gillingham Town Council now recommend approval of the application. Only one neighbour representation remains concerning noise impact from the adjacent commercial uses, as we've just heard. However, following receipt of this comment and comments from the council's own environmental health officer, an environmental noise assessment was submitted in August 2023, which considers the impact on the new dwellings from sound sources, including the adjacent commercial uses. The result of this assessment is that some mitigation is required, which is being proposed in the form of facade sound insulation, reduce the likelihood of adverse impacts. This mitigation is now secured by condition 7 of the recommendation, which requires an approval of an acoustic design statement prior to the occupation of any dwelling. Furthermore, the layout has taken account the adjoining land uses by not including any buildings hard up against the boundary within this use, as you can see on the plan, with gardens providing separation to the main living areas and screening from retained vegetation. Application has been subject to much discussion with officers, with the scheme that is before you today having been refined following meetings between the applicant's team and the council's planning, urban design, landscaping and highways officers. It is the applicant's view that this collaborative approach has assisted with bringing the application to the stage with a recommendation for approval.
Thank you, Mr.
I was going to say thank you to officers for their help. That was all.
Could I now ask councillors whether they have questions? Please.
Councillor Fry first.
Right.
Councillor Fry first.
Oh, Councillor Fry, would you like to go ahead?
Thank you, Chair. Looks a good and impressive development to me. Kirsten, you didn't mention anything about climate emergency issues, renewables. We've seen nothing about electric charging, solar, air source, water recovery. Can you tell me what the plans are for that on this site, please?
Yep, the applicant has submitted an energy statement which demonstrates a reduction in CO2 emissions from the development. It's using a fabric first approach and energy efficient measures. They're proposing low and zero carbon technologies and water consumption of less than 110 litres per person per day. Whilst there aren't any solar PVs proposed within the application, they are identifying air source heat pumps in the energy statement to provide the heating and domestic hot water demand.
You said it's air source heating for all these units that will be installed.
That's what's included in the energy statement. Yeah.
Thank you. And solar panels, are they going to be installed and electric car charging?
There's no post the solar panels, but there's no reason why individuals couldn't install solar PVs in the future on their own properties.
Thanks, but we know that retrofitting solar panels in one apartment is more expensive. Hannah, do you have a view on this? Because it seems a shame where it's a missed opportunity on such a large site, 240 properties. This is an ideal opportunity to take the county forward to make it more energy efficient and climate neutral, carbon neutral.
Thank you, Councillor Fry. The development will have to meet the more stringent building regulations, which require energy efficient measures, and this is why we're seeing these measures come forward, which such as air source heat pumps, and that is a recognised sustainable solution, and it's not just solar panels; it's sort of a combination of really high insulation through the new building regulations and the air source heat pump, which makes the units sustainable and good air-tight dwellings. So it's not just about one sort of solution. I think this will provide sustainable dwellings up to the newer building standard. And there is also a requirement for building regulations to provide EV charging points on those dwellings now as well through the building regulations. In terms of going beyond that with our policies, it's very difficult to insist on more sort of measures that we might want to include, because it's not at this point in time underpinned by any policy. But I think we can be reassured that they will be sustainable, and that's reassuring that we have got a condition there on air source heat pumps and the noise measures to ensure that they are compatible with the residential units there, because it does look like that's the energy solution that will be developed by this developer on this site, which is obviously welcome.
Thanks, Helen. I welcome those moves to make these houses so sustainable with the insulation and the air source. But I think there's a missed opportunity for solar panels and water recovery to use the rainwater and other methods as grey water. I think that's a miss there, and that would be good if other developers who are listening to this meeting and listening to that, and when you're meeting with them, to try and push that on, please, because we don't help ourselves. We're not. Who else is going to make a difference? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jefferson, please.
Yes, President. Thank you. First of all, I know colleagues won't mind me reminding everybody that we make our remarks through the chair, not asking our questions direct to officers. It makes for it makes it easier for the chair to control the meeting. First of all, I support this application. I'm minded to support it, but I just have a question and a sort of half question, half comment. In paragraph 16.5 of the officer's report, I note the HEC comments on the large number of flats in the 2-bedroom provision for housing. This is acceptable. The case officer explained to us why this is acceptable for this particular application, because it's part of a wider package. But I think it would be helpful if we could just note, as it were, in our minutes, that the HETI, that's the Housing Enabling Team, have commented on this and raised concerns, and we need to ensure that this is addressed in the future parcels of this going forward. So if we could just note that remarks from the Housing Enabling Team, get it in our minutes, that helps the officer when she comes to negotiate the rest of this development, that it's acceptable in this context, but we wouldn't want all of to carry on with that, with the 2-bedroom provision being principally flats, because that actually isn't a good enough tenure over the space of the whole application. So if we could just kind of, if the committee agrees, we could just note that in our minutes, that would be helpful.
Yes, okay, thank you. Ensure it's noted.
Yes, and I'd leave it to the Gillingham members to begin the debate and comment further on this.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Rideau.
Councillor Rideout, please go ahead.
Sorry, no.
Councillor James. Councillor James.
Thank you. I just wanted to come back to the gentleman that spoke on higher Ham House with regards to the hedging or fencing that gives him security. What exactly is planned there, and can we condition that there is something robust that stops people getting into his site? Because I think that's important. That was one thing. And then I just wanted to ask, on the affordable units, are any of them going to be designed, or can we condition that we do have, whether it's just a small number, designed for disabled access? Thank you.
On the first issue of the house, the distinct commercial uses, it's noted in the environmental statement for the outline application that there are noise sources around the site which could impact on the living conditions of future occupiers. So that was noted in the environmental statement, because this obviously is the reserved matters stage where matters of principle have been established, and we're looking at the scale, appearance, layout, and so on this application, we actually have got a condition that ties back to the outline consent, which is condition 7, which I think gives some sort of security that this will be looked at, and there's a requirement for a final acoustic design statement, which needs to be submitted for approval, which obviously would be consulted with our environmental health team to ensure that if there are any measures that are required in the dwellings themselves, such as mechanical ventilation or any kind of additional glazing, that would be included in the final design of the dwellings. The outline didn't identify noise sources that would mean that there has to be measures such as a large acoustic fence, because that's already been looked at the outline stage. We do have some control through condition 7 of this reserve matters and the outline consent that we looked at. I don't know if we've got the details of the boundary. Oh yes, it's retained. I think the hedge is be retained. Yeah, so on this plan, the hedge will be retained. So there's no proposal to remove it. In terms of additional crime, I don't think that's something that would necessarily be a planning consideration on this application. In terms of obviously there's more people living there, and I note the concern that there from the resident that spoke. But I don't think there's anything on this application that we could really do in terms of extra security that's required in terms of conditions. I'm sorry, Councillor, what was your last point?
Disabled access on the affordable units.
Oh, yes, okay. That was dealt with through the outline consent and section 106, which requires the amount of affordable housing to be provided. So at this stage, I don't think we can revisit what was secured there in terms of additional units for accessibility. I know in more recent schemes we have had percentages that meet certain requirements, so that would have been dealt with at the outline stage for this application's particular phase.
Thank you. Mr. Jones. Any more questions? Any other councillors? Councillor Rideout, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. I have a comment. Well, I've been involved with this a very long time now, and I'm so pleased this strategic development is coming forward now for Gillingham. And I say it has been a long time. Makes me realise how long I've been in planning, I think. But it's another piece of the jigsaw, and it's going to be very beneficial for Gillingham. It's been well consulted upon, and we've got the public behind us on this, which is good. I did have a few queries which I spoke with Kirsten about previously, which she duly answered. Thank you for that. I note Gillingham Town Council recommended approval of this application back in February. If Mr. Moore's concerns could be addressed through the acoustic condition number 7, that would be great. I'm pleased affordable housing, 36% is coming through. That's very much needed for Gillingham. And I'm also very pleased, a little thing, but it's a big thing to me, that we have some slip boxes being installed, which is absolutely fantastic. So I'd like to recommend approval, please, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Could I ask Councillor Pothecary to comment, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Val Pothecary, Gillingham and the Villages. I think that I was going to ask the question about the alleviation of Mr. Moore's concerns, but I do understand that conditions are in place and hopefully they will be enough. So going back to the principle, really, I mean, obviously this is a reserved matters application. Several changes have been made. I welcome the landscaping, the open spaces, the trees. I think it's a really, really good design. Years of work have gone into this, and the town, I do feel, has got behind it now. They were never really against it in the first place, but everybody was a bit unsure. And with each iteration, it has improved, I think. And so, like my colleague, Councillor Rideout, I really welcome all this. I'd like to propose acceptance of this application. Thank you.
Okay, could I ask Councillor Wood to make some comments?
Councillor Carl Wood, Gillingham Ward. I just wanted to get a bit of clarity around section 9.3, talking about Wessex Water and their comments, and the fact that there's about adopting surface elements and also the foul water network. I was just wondering if you could clarify what state that's in.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a proposer?
We've had a proposal.
Yes. In a second already. Councillor Belinda Rideout has proposed. Councillor did. However, we just need the opposite response to the question.
So back to you then, officers. Kirsten?
Further clarification was requested from Dorset Council for risk management, and they've now raised no objection. The phase 2 site has sufficient gradients for pipes drain to the detention basin on Spine Road, and therefore proposals consistent with high level drainage strategy and flood risk assessment. Sorry, it was Westbrook.
Yeah.
Second.
Please ask if there's any more questions or comments.
Are there any more questions or comments from members?
Apologies, Chair, we just need to clarify the question because it was about Wessex Water.
Okay. This is about the proposed planning application for Gillingham. I'm asking, do we have any other questions from members?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Hi, thank you. So
we just need to hear, Mr. Chairman, if I may, we just need to hear a response from Mrs. Smith on Wessex Water, and then I think we're good to go.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Sorry, Chair, thank you. Yes, to answer that question, Wessex Water did note some concerns originally, but we have had further foul water details that have been submitted to seek to discharge the outline condition as well. And the strategy submitted at the outline stage did not include the use of water butts, and this wasn't secured by planning conditions, but the officers noted that. In terms of what Wessex Water have commented, they're matters that can be dealt with post dealing with this reserve matters application. They're matters that the developer would have to speak to Wessex Water about to agree a point of connection. I believe we have had notification on the site of an intention to use a wastewater provider. So that is something that is sort of a standard note that the Wessex Water have notified us, that doesn't have to concern us on the reserve matters application in terms of looking at the landscaping scale and such like. And it's something that you feel confident can be resolved in terms of the foul connection. Kirsten just outlined that there's no concern also with the surface water, which is what our lead flood authority look at. But Wessex Water's remit slightly different in terms of the waste disposal points.
Okay, thank you for that. So that means we don't need to impose any more conditions. We can keep things as they are. Okay, so can we please go to a vote? So those in favour? That's pretty unanimous. Don't think there are any against. Thank you very much. Okay, that planning permission is now been granted. Thank you for that. So now we go to agenda item 8. I'm going to ask Janie Francis to. This is planning application E/FUL/2024/00958, the Tree Hives, Duck Lane, Stourbridge.
Right here.
It may take just a little while for this to come up, so apologies for the wait, but we will get there pretty soon.
Just have a break. 5 minutes. Have to be taken to any break. Is it was right?
So this application is for development at the Treehouse, Duck Lane, Stallbridge, DT10 to LL. This application has been called to committee because the applicant is Dorset Council. The application is for a material change of use of a parcel of land from private garden to school land and operational development by way of erecting perimeter fencing around the land. So this aerial imagery shows the site boundary outlined in red. Plot is located at the rear of the treehouse, which is located from the north side of Duck Lane, near the junction with Churchill and High Street. The plot of land is currently accessed from Duck Lane through private garden gates, which are located between the treehouse and the school next door. For wider context, the land is located just outside the settlement boundary to the north of the town of Stallbridge. Therefore, in policy terms, it is considered countryside. The site is bordered by dry stone walls along the property boundaries. The land borders Stallbridge Primary School to the south-southeast and agricultural lands to the east and north, and the remaining more domesticated part of the garden of the treehouse to the west. Change of use of the land to school land is sought because the school site is constrained and the external areas are undersized, falling short of Building Bulletin 103 guidelines by 2,000 square metres. This area of land is 1,700 square metres, therefore has the potential to significantly reduce this deficit. The proposed change of use therefore benefits the school in allowing it to expand its external areas, especially given the anticipated capacity pressures at the school with the planned expansion of Stallbridge. Here's a photograph of the land when looked at from the existing, the part of the garden to be retained. That's then looking outwards towards the piece that's subject to this application. And then here's some more photographs of that. So the land is a mixture of some maintained garden, mature scrub, and it features mature trees, shrubs, and flora. This graphic demonstrates the general classification of the land at the time the application was submitted. The treehouse itself is a Grade 2 listed building, and here you can observe the street scene of Duck Lane with the treehouse here and the primary school next door. And the access to the garden is through this gap here. So the garden land, the subject of this application, is at approximately 50 metres from the treehouse. And this is considered at great enough distance from the Grade 2 listed building that it is not considered to impact upon the setting. The land is also located within Stalbridge Conservation Area, as shown on Dorset Explorer here, shaded blue. Given there are limited public views of the lands, and the land already adjoins the school and will remain largely undeveloped apart from the perimeter fencing, the proposal is not considered to result in any harm to the character and appearance of the conservation area. There is one public viewpoint towards the site from a public footpath to the rear. This photograph here is taken from where I placed this yellow arrow. This is approximately 100 metres away, and the site is screened by mature trees. Being located within a conservation area means the trees have protection. So the application is accompanied by a tree survey. I've shown an image from here, which outlines that 28 of the 31 trees are to be retained, with those to be removed have been assessed as either dead or dying. A new access will be provided between the existing primary school and the application site by installing a new gate through the existing chain link fence in between trees T9 and T16. The new access is represented on the map by a star symbol. This access will allow for school children as well as maintenance vehicles to access the site. As the current access will no longer be available. As is required for school land, it must be surrounded by perimeter fencing. This will be 1.8 metres high wild mesh panels in black. This will provide security to the school and neighbouring properties, as well as being relatively unobtrusive to the surrounding environment. Beyond the northeast boundary, there will also be a further 1.1 metre high timber post fence enclosing the site from the surrounding agricultural land. That's the 1.8 metre high fencing around this portion, also the fur fencing at the end. So the fence to the southwest, which borders the treehouse, will be similar 1.8 metre wild mesh fence, but infilled with wooden panels, offering mutual privacy and security between the school and the treehouse, as well as offering a more appropriate residential appearance at the end of the treehouse's garden. Here's some photos visualising the boundary fencing. This will be around the north and east of the site. This will be where it joins the part of the garden to be retained by the treehouse. And at the very far end of the site, there will also be this timber post fencing. The land is also considered a sufficient distance from the treehouse to not give rise to immediate issues such as noise, disturbance, and overlooking. And the fact the garden already borders the school is also relevant in this assessment. The other surrounding land uses are largely agricultural, except one small area of the north boundary that borders the biome, circled in green here. As you can see from this image, this is screened by trees, vegetation, and an outbuilding. It's also sufficiently distanced from the house itself, the bio, which is here, to be unlikely to result in excessive disturbance through noise. So in policy terms, the site is located outside the but adjoining the settlement boundary of Stalbridge. Therefore, the local plan's countryside policies apply. Policy 20 states that grey, social and green infrastructure projects that have an overriding need for their countryside location, such as essential additional facilities, will be permitted, provided acceptable against the plan's other policies, such as amenity, design, etc., which I consider it to be. The application also features biodiversity mitigations and enhancements, such as many bird and bat boxes, as well as hedgehog homes, that have been reviewed and supported by Dorset Council's Natural Environment team, as well as an arboricultural impact assessment that has been reviewed and supported by Dorset Council's tree officers. So Therefore, I bring you to a summary of my recommendation. So firstly, part 11 of the National Planning Policy Framework sets out that permission should be granted for sustainable development unless specific policies indicate otherwise. The location is considered to be sustainable. The proposal is considered to result in no harm to the setting of heritage assets. There is not considered to be any significant harm to neighbouring residential amenity. And the proposal is to accommodate better educational facilities and learning environment. And there are no material considerations which warrant refusal of this application. Therefore, I recommend the grant permission subject to conditions.
Jamie, you just turn your microphone off, please. Thanks. As you are the local ward member, I'm going to ask Councillor James Vitale if you have any questions or comments regarding this application that you might wish to make first.
Thank you, Chair. And just comments really. On the basis of what we heard from the officer, I think this is an entirely sensible proposal. As we heard, the housing stock, once all the permissions have been built out in Stourbridge, is set to increase by about 40%. And that's a very significant increase to the housing stock in the town. And as the officer said, I think there's an overriding need for an expansion of the school. But the one suggested here is especially appropriate. It's in a sustainable location. It's already next to the school. It will help future-proof the school for what hopefully will be an increase in the number of young families in our town. And as importantly, it's already secured strong support, not only from the parish council, but from residents across the town. So I'd just like to record that I think this is a very sensible proposal, and I hope that it's approved today. Okay. I'd like to propose it to you.
Okay, thank you for that. Ward members, do you have any other questions? Councillor Jefferson.
Carol. I'd just like to second it, Mr. Chairman, if I may. I think it's a no-brainer. It seems like a very sensible use of space, and any objections have been adequately, or potential objections have been adequately addressed by the officer's report. So I'd like to second it.
Okay, thank you very much. So if I can refer back to Councillor David Taylor, I think he had a question.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to cover on the fencing, if you don't mind, please. Regarding the fencing at the end of the boundary, could you bring that back up, please? Yes. Next slide. That was that, yeah. Because the sixth panel you've got there is the site C for northeast boundary. Now, is that between the end of the boundary of the plot and going to the next plot, or is it dividing the school plots and the plots?
So that fence is that's one at the very end. Yeah. It was because this is more intrusive on trees. Yeah. The type A fencing. So they brought the type A fencing further in, where it'll be hitting less of the roof protection areas.
Can you go back to the picture of the fence again? The reason I'm asking the question is that that fence looks so quite easy for kids to climb over. Is there anything to stop them going any further?
Inside.
Insert, yeah.
So the other fence, which is here, the children won't be able to get beyond.
That's fabulous. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. We have a proposer and a seconder. Are there any other questions? I think not. So I think we can go straight to a vote with a show of hands. I think that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, so permission is granted. And regarding the rest of the meeting, agenda item 9, we don't have any urgent items. We don't have any exempt business. So at this time, at 11:38 on the 4th of June, I declare the meeting closed. Thank you all very much.